You had a rest day, you earned it. You spent most of it horizontal, scrolling through your phone, watching videos you didn't even really want to watch, lying on the couch, feeling vaguely guilty about not being productive, while simultaneously being too tired to actually do anything productive. By 9 p.m., you've consumed approximately 4 hours of content you won't remember tomorrow, eaten whatever required the least effort, and accomplished the impressive feat of spending an entire day doing nothing while somehow feeling more exhausted than when you started. You tell yourself you just need to sleep it off. Tomorrow will be better, but tomorrow comes and the tiredness is still there. The motivation is still flat. The brain fog hasn't cleared, and you start to wonder, is this just who I am now? Is this just what life feels like? Here is what nobody told you about that rest day. What you did was not rest. It was not work either. It was something neurologically in between. A low-grade stimulation state that is too activating for genuine recovery and too passive for genuine engagement. Your nervous system spent the entire day in a kind of biological limbo, never fully recovering, never fully performing, burning through energy reserves while restoring almost none of them. This is how most people rest, and it explains why most people are chronically depleted, despite spending significant time doing what they believe is resting. High performers rest differently, not because they have more time or fewer responsibilities, because they understand something fundamental about what rest actually is at the neurological level, what it requires, what it produces, and why most of what passes for rest in modern life produces almost none of it. By the end of this video, you'll have the complete 4-layer rest protocol, the exact system elite performers use to generate genuine biological restoration in the minimum time possible. Not more rest, better rest, let's build it. What rest actually is and what it isn't. The popular understanding of rest is essentially the absence of work. You stop doing demanding things and that counts as rest. This understanding is so incomplete that it has produced an entire generation of people who are simultaneously overworked and under-recovered, spending enormous amounts of time in states that feel like rest but restore nothing. Genuine rest, biologically restorative rest, is not simply the absence of demanding activity. It is the presence of specific physiological conditions that allow your nervous system to shift from sympathetic dominance to parasympathetic dominance, your stress hormone levels to normalize, your adenosine to clear, your dopamine system to resynthesize, and your neural networks to consolidate and reorganize the information processed during periods of active engagement. These conditions do not occur automatically when you stop working. They require specific inputs, or more precisely, the deliberate removal of specific inputs that prevent them from occurring. And here is the critical problem with modern rest behaviors: scrolling your phone, watching stimulating video content, engaging with social media, consuming news. All of these activities maintain sympathetic nervous system activation. They keep cortisol elevated. They demand continuous dopamine release. They prevent the parasympathetic shift that genuine recovery requires. Your nervous system has two primary operating modes. The sympathetic mode, fight, flight, and focused effort, is active during demanding work, stressful situations, high-stimulation entertainment, and social media consumption. The parasympathetic mode, rest, digest, and restore, is active during genuine relaxation, sleep, calm contemplative activities, and specific recovery practices. Here is the problem. Scrolling your phone for 4 hours on a rest day keeps you in sympathetic mode. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between the low-grade stress of doom scrolling and the low-grade stress of a demanding workday. Both patterns keep cortisol elevated, both patterns demand dopamine, both patterns prevent the parasympathetic shift your biology requires for genuine recovery. You spent your rest day doing something that felt like rest and functioned like work at the neurological level. You did not rest. You just worked in a less demanding and less rewarding way. And that is why you felt worse at the end of it. The 4-layer rest protocol addresses this by providing 4 specific, scientifically validated types of rest, each targeting a different biological recovery system, each requiring a different implementation, and each producing restoration that the others cannot replace. Genuine full recovery requires all 4 layers. Most people access none of them intentionally. Let's change that. The 4-layer rest protocol. Layer 1. Physical rest. Releasing the body's stress architecture. Physical rest is the most obvious layer and the one most people think they are getting when they rest. They are usually not getting it in the form their biology requires. There are 2 types of physical rest with completely different biological profiles. Passive physical rest, lying still, sleeping, reducing physical activity, and active physical rest, gentle movement, stretching, yoga, walking, that specifically promotes parasympathetic nervous system activation and accelerates physiological recovery. Most people on rest days choose passive physical rest by default. They lie on the couch, stay in bed late, avoid movement. This is neurologically appropriate during genuine illness or after extreme physical exertion. But for the standard cognitive worker who has spent a week primarily doing mental work with low physical activity, passive rest is not the most effective recovery tool. In fact, research consistently shows that light to moderate movement on recovery days accelerates the clearance of stress hormones, improves circulation, promotes parasympathetic nervous system activation, and generates BDNF, the brain's growth factor, at levels that enhance cognitive recovery. Your body was designed for movement. A week of primarily sedentary cognitive work creates a physiological deficit in movement that passive rest does not address. The chronic tension patterns that accumulate in your neck, shoulders, and back from prolonged sitting maintain low-level sympathetic nervous system activation through proprioceptive feedback. Your body's sensory system continues signaling postural stress to your brain even when you are lying on the couch. Gentle movement, a 30 to 40-minute walk, light stretching, yoga, swimming, releases these tension patterns, sends safety signals through the proprioceptive system, and allows your autonomic nervous system to genuinely downregulate. The protocol. On rest days, replace at least one extended passive rest period with 30 to 40 minutes of low-intensity movement, walking being the most accessible and research-supported option. Keep the intensity low enough that you can breathe comfortably through your nose throughout. This is not exercise in the performance sense. It is active recovery in the physiological sense. The goal is parasympathetic activation, not cardiovascular output. The difference in how you feel at the end of a rest day that includes a gentle walk versus one spent entirely horizontal is not subtle. Your nervous system will tell you which one actually worked. Layer 2. Mental rest. Silencing the cognitive noise floor. Mental rest is the layer most completely absent from modern rest behavior and the one whose absence most directly explains the feeling of being tired despite spending a day doing nothing. Your brain has a baseline level of cognitive activity that runs continuously even when you are not consciously working on anything, what neuroscientists call the cognitive noise floor. This baseline activity includes background processing of unresolved problems, low-level monitoring of potential threats and social concerns, continuous evaluation of your performance and standing, and the persistent hum of unfinished mental tasks cycling through working memory. The cognitive noise floor does not turn off when you stop working. It runs on an independent schedule driven by your default mode network, the brain network responsible for self-referential processing and mind wandering. In most people, the cognitive noise floor is chronically elevated, meaning even during rest periods their brain is running significant background processing that maintains low-level mental fatigue without producing any useful cognitive output. Scrolling your phone and watching stimulating content does not lower the cognitive noise floor. It temporarily drowns it out with incoming stimulation. The moment the stimulation stops, when you put the phone down, when the show ends, the background noise returns exactly as loud as before. You have not rested your brain, you have distracted it. And distraction is not rest. Genuine mental rest requires deliberately reducing the cognitive noise floor. This happens through 2 primary mechanisms: cognitive offloading and non-directed awareness practices. Cognitive offloading, writing down every unresolved thought, task, worry, and open loop currently in your working memory. frees your prefrontal cortex from its background tracking function and immediately reduces the cognitive noise floor. We covered this in the overthinking video, and its application here is identical. Your brain stops running background searches for unresolved items the moment it has evidence they are safely stored. Non-directed awareness practices, sitting quietly with no task demand, gentle nature observation, contemplative walking without audio input, allow your default mode network to cycle through its natural processing without the additional load of incoming stimulation. Research on mindfulness and contemplative practices consistently shows reduction in default mode, network hyperactivation, and measurable decreases in the subjective experience of mental fatigue following even brief periods of non-directed awareness. 10 to 15 minutes of genuinely quiet, unstimulated awareness produces more mental rest than 2 hours of passive entertainment consumption. The protocol: build 2 mental rest periods into each rest day. A 10 to 15-minute morning session of complete quiet, no phone, no audio, no input. Simply sit or walk and allow your mind to do whatever it does without directing it. And a 20-minute cognitive offload session, writing down everything currently in your mental background processor onto paper. The combination of these 2 practices will produce a measurable reduction in mental fatigue within the first 2 to 3 weeks of consistent practice. Layer 3. Emotional rest. Releasing the performance of being okay. This is the rest layer that high achievers most consistently skip and most urgently need. Emotional rest is not about managing your emotions or improving your emotional intelligence. It is about releasing the continuous low-level performance of competence, positivity, and capability that most ambitious people maintain throughout their waking hours, and the enormous energetic cost of that performance. Psychologist Saundra Dalton-Smith, who identified emotional rest as a distinct recovery category, describes it as the rest that comes from no longer having to be anything for anyone. Not the supportive friend, not the productive colleague, not the person who has it together, not even the disciplined self-improver who is always working on themselves, just a human being without a performance to maintain. Most high achievers are performing continuously. They are monitoring how they are perceived, managing the impressions they make, suppressing frustration and fatigue that feel unprofessional or weak, maintaining enthusiasm they do not always genuinely feel, and generating reassurance and support for others while privately managing their own stress. This performance draws on a specific set of emotional regulatory resources that are just as finite and depletable as cognitive resources, and just as in need of genuine recovery periods. The cost of chronic emotional performance without recovery is what researchers call emotional exhaustion, the specific type of depletion that produces the flat, hollow, going through the motions experience that many high achievers describe as the worst aspect of burnout. You are still functioning, you are still performing, but there is nobody home behind the performance. Emotional rest requires 2 things. First, authentic expression. Periods where you are not performing, not managing impressions, not maintaining a version of yourself for an audience. This might mean time completely alone. It might mean time with 1 or 2 people with whom you can be fully honest about what you are actually experiencing. It might mean journaling without the intention of self-improvement, just honest, unfiltered expression of what is true for you right now. Second, emotional boundary maintenance. Identifying the relationships, interactions, and environments that require the most emotional performance from you, and ensuring that your rest periods are protected from them. The protocol: designate at least 2 hours per rest day as completely performance-free time. No social obligations, no impression management, no being the capable together person. This might mean time alone. It might mean honest conversation with someone you fully trust. It might mean crying at a movie because you finally have space to feel something. Whatever it looks like for you, protect it. Your emotional regulatory resources cannot replenish while they are continuously deployed. Layer 4. Sensory rest, quieting the overstimulated nervous system. The final layer is the one most specific to the modern era, and the one that most directly explains why rest looked different for previous generations. Because the specific stressor it addresses did not exist in its current form until roughly 15 years ago. Sensory rest is recovery from the chronic sensory overload produced by modern digital environments. Your nervous system was designed to process a certain volume and intensity of sensory information, the level present in a pre-digital natural environment. It was not designed for the continuous high-intensity sensory bombardment of smartphones, social media, 24-hour news, streaming content, open-plan offices, constant notifications, and the omnipresent background noise of modern urban life. Chronic sensory overload maintains sympathetic nervous system activation, elevates cortisol, exhausts the attentional systems of the prefrontal cortex, and produces a specific type of fatigue, sensory fatigue, that feels like mental exhaustion but is specifically driven by the overstimulation of your sensory processing systems rather than by genuine cognitive work. Research on attention restoration theory by Rachel and Stephen Kaplan shows that natural environments, specifically environments with soft, low-intensity, effortlessly engaging sensory inputs like trees, water, open sky, and birdsong, produce a specific restorative effect on the attentional systems of the prefrontal cortex that no amount of indoor passive rest replicates. Natural environments are the sensory environment your nervous system evolved in. Exposure to them produces measurable reduction in cortisol, reduction in sympathetic nervous system activation, and restoration of directed attention capacity within as little as 20 minutes. This is not nature romanticism, it is neuroscience, and it explains why people consistently report feeling genuinely restored after time in nature in a way that time on the couch never produces, regardless of how long they spend on the couch. The protocol. Incorporate a minimum of 20 to 30 minutes of genuine sensory rest per rest day. Ideally in a natural environment, a park, a garden, any outdoor space with natural elements. During this time, no phone, no audio input, no podcast. Simply be in the environment and allow your sensory processing systems to receive low-intensity natural input. If natural environments are not accessible, even low-stimulation indoor environments with natural light, plants, and minimal artificial sound produce a partial restorative effect compared to high-stimulation digital environments. Additionally, implement a 1 to 2 hour digital-free period each evening as standard sensory rest practice, not just on rest days. Your sensory processing systems require daily recovery periods, not just weekly ones. If this is reframing what rest means for you right now, hit that like button and tell me in the comments. What does your rest day currently look like? Be honest. I read every single one. Your 4-layer rest protocol cheat sheet. Layer 1, physical rest. 30 to 40 minutes of low-intensity movement, walking, stretching, gentle yoga. Release the body's accumulated stress architecture and activate the parasympathetic nervous system through active recovery. Layer 2, mental rest. 10 to 15 minutes of complete quiet, non-directed awareness, 20 minutes of cognitive offloading. Write every open loop onto paper. Reduce the cognitive noise floor deliberately. Layer 3, emotional rest. 2 hours of performance-free time. No impression management, no social obligations, no being the together person. Authentic expression or genuine solitude. Let the emotional regulatory system recover. Layer 4, sensory rest. 20 to 30 minutes in a natural or low-stimulation environment with no digital input. Allow your sensory processing systems to receive the low-intensity natural input they were designed for. Daily, digital-free evening period as standard practice. Here is the reframe that changes everything. Rest is not the absence of performance. Rest is a performance in itself, the performance of biological recovery. And like every performance, it responds to skill, intention, and the right technique applied consistently. The high performers you admire who seem to sustain extraordinary output year after year without collapsing are not resting less than you. They are resting better. They have learned, intentionally or accidentally, to access genuine biological recovery in ways that most people never do. They treat rest as a discipline with the same seriousness they bring to their work, because they understand something that most people don't. You cannot perform at the level you are capable of on resources you have not replenished. The quality of your work is downstream of the quality of your recovery. always, without exception. Rest is not the reward for hard work. Rest is the infrastructure that makes hard work possible. Build the infrastructure deliberately, protect it fiercely, and watch what becomes possible when you bring a genuinely restored nervous system to the hardest things you want to do. Like this video, if your rest just got a serious upgrade. Subscribe because next week we are diving into the science of how your memory actually works, and why everything you were taught about remembering things is wrong in the most fascinating way. That one is going to change how you learn forever. Let's go.